good evening, everybody, if you're watching in the UK. Good morning, everybody, if you're joining us from down under, like Alex and Dana. Welcome to the To Hull and Back podcast 2024-25 season preview. As always, proudly sponsored by Old Zoological Bar and Kingfisher Fish and Chips, both in Hull. I'm on hosting duties because Nathaniel said if he would be hosting, he'd fall asleep. He's had a pint of cider and he can't hack it.
So, I haven't got any energy tonight, so sorry about that.
So
I remember my first beer as well.
So we've got myself, Nathaniel, and Will sat at base camp in Hull, and then Alex and Dan joining us as last year before I joined the podcast. Weirdly, feels like I've been here forever. Joining us from Australia, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're ploughing on, aren't we, guys?
Dreading or looking forward to the season? I don't know. I'm somewhere in the middle, I think.
Slowly losing the will to live, I think.
I agree. Yeah, but with will, not enter. I don't really have any positivity for it.
Yeah, I think it's gone past the point of, obviously we'll talk about signings and news and so on in a little bit, but I'm almost just curious now to see what the season's going to be like because of how light or limited the preparation's been. Like, I'm kind of past the point of being upset and panicking. I'm more into the morbid curiosity stage, I think.
Yeah, I just want to see some football, to be honest. At least we'll have something decent there'll be something meaty to talk about beyond all of the nothings and rumours and bloody wishy-washy nonsense that we've got at the moment.
Thank God, like the Euros and then the Olympics have been on this summer, because Christ knows how this summer would have been without them.
Yeah, the Euros gave us some content for a while, didn't they? And then that ended how it ended, unfortunately. And now we're into the Hull City depression stage of the summer. So I think the plan is just to have a bit of general chatter and then we'll dive into some little predictions that we've prepared. Unless you will, then Willie's going on the fly and for vibes, which...
That's the correct way to do a prediction.
Nearly 11 o'clock on a Friday night seems quite apt. So I suppose we'll start with just optimism, pessimism, or somewhere in between that Ant was discussing earlier. How are we all feeling?
It's one of those, isn't it? Because people keep pointing out that we've made the same amount of signings this time as what we had last year. But last year we had a competitive team anyway, whereas this season I don't think we do. So I think the worry is that if we went into the first few games of the season with the squad as it currently is, that's a worry for me. Imagine if Oscar gets injured or if Alfie Jones gets injured, you're playing Andy Smith there. Like, we're so thin in so many areas of the pitch, and it just seems like we're so unorganized and underprepared for this season that it's a worry. Because I mean, we've said this before, haven't we, lads? Where what they were telling us last season is like, don't worry, like the money's fine and everything. But realistically, when you look at it, do we think that the money situation was fine? It looks like we had to sell to buy, and now we can't evidently compete with teams in the same league for players that we've been coming for because people keep snubbing us from right under our noses. And if we're struggling to lure players in with a few weeks left of the transfer window, that means that clubs know you're starting to get desperate and inflate those transfer prices, and you have to pay more for them, which is a position that we don't obviously want to be in. So it's a little bit worrying. The only saving grace, I think, is that there's a few weeks left of the window, so we've got plenty of time to get them in. It's just with our track record of getting signings over the line, we probably needed an extra couple of weeks to announce them. So yeah,
a big thing that Adjan has discussed all summer is the Premier League loan market. And he said that the key date we all need to be looking out for is the 20th of August, because by that point, all the Premier League clubs will know which young players they want to keep in and around their squads, which young players can be let out on loan. the loan market worked well for us late in the window last year and in January. We got some cracking deals: Carvalho, Giles, Morton, Delap early in the window as well. But do you worry that the ownership and the owner, especially Adrian, are putting a lot of their eggs in the loan basket again, and thus we're not going to have a core of a squad this time next year and be in the exact same position?
Yeah, and I was gonna say that when you're talking about the loan market, my frustration is that the way I see the loan market is there's almost two types of players you should be loaning in. It's either players that you think are, potentially undervalued or inexperienced players that you could then bring in and potentially sign on a permanent deal in the next summer if they work out well. Or I see them as players that are, I suppose, outside the budget that you can't sign on a permanent, like a Carvalho, who you can get for a 6-month period, who you otherwise wouldn't have any chance of having play for the club. But it feels like, and Delap and Morton were brilliant for us last season, but in signing players like that, which are sort of neither category but also both, where they're inexperienced players, but once they get that experience, their valuation is just completely out of your ballpark. If you're doing that each season with most of the loan spots, you're just back to square one each summer, and it's a gamble that you can find a similar quality of loan the following summer. So I'd rather us be more focusing on bringing in a Carvalho type of loan at the end of the window once we go, right, this is our squad, this is our core, these are all our permanent players. Where are the flaws or where are the gaps, or where, maybe on deadline day a player becomes available you wouldn't have expected, that you go, look, yep, let's bring them in on loan, and that's that, sprinkle of fairy dust on top to cap off a potentially promotion challenging squad, rather than saying we need a Morton in midfield to play 46 games for the season on loan, who then is suddenly gone and we have to replace.
Yeah, loans are awkward. One that was mentioned earlier in the window, and I was talking to various people about it, namely Mike White and James Hogarth the other day. One that was mentioned earlier in the window was James McConnell, and we were all in agreement that that one is likely to crop back up because Adrian has talked about the 20th, and we are light in central midfield, and that brings us on to our second new signing, third actual altogether signing of the window. Marvin Malem was confirmed the other day. He was at the Fiorentina game and looked, as someone who had a good, I could look straight at him all game. He looked absolutely thrilled to be here. Not. He was sat, slumped. For audio listeners, I'll just describe what I'm going to do now. Slumped in his chair, foot up, resting on the other, either on his phone or with his head down. Didn't really look interested at all.
Probably looking for another club to sign him.
That's how the window's gone. But he's not a striker, Will. He's not a striker. He's versatile, but he's not a striker. He can play as a 6, an 8, a 10, left or right. Other than that, what do we know about him?
Well, I think it's probably a good signing. From one tweet I saw, it said that he was one of the few Darmstadt players and they had a terrible season and got relegated from the Bundesliga. It was only one of the few that was actually Bundesliga quality, but he'll be one of those players that we're all happy to sign now. But before, we were rumoured to be signing and no one had heard of him.
Yeah.
So we don't really know. But surely you'd like to think that someone who was in the Bundesliga last season can at least be good enough quality for the Championship. It just depends on how we integrate. But clearly Volta has worked with him before, a few years ago when he was I think a young player, an academy player. So clearly they've worked with each other, and hopefully he can integrate into that system. But hopefully as well, the way he was looking at that friendly with the Fiorentina game, perhaps it's just he's not as interested because he's annoyed that he can't play. But we'll see how that goes. But I'm quite excited.
I think it's probably just because it was a friendly. I mean, let's be honest. How involved are we as fans in friendlies as well? I mean, Newcastle obviously are very involved. But I wasn't even tempted to go to any of the friendlies, to be fair, and I never really am. It's just they're glorified training exercises out there. The poor lad was probably, I don't know, when he travelled over, he's probably just wanting to get settled somewhere and just get knuckled down and announced and stuff. Obviously, he wasn't announced at that point, was he? But I wouldn't look into his body language when he's watching a friendly too much. Let's see what he does.
Well, during the Fiorentina friendly, I saw what turned out to be Nikola Milenkovic just left Fiorentina to sign for Nottingham Forest. He walked through, and I thought, I looked over at him. I thought, I recognise you. And I thought, is he the childless goalkeeper? So I spent the first 15 minutes of the game trawling through Transfer Market to find free agent goalkeepers, only to have someone tell me it's Nikola Milenkovic.
I mean, going on to his the body language of Malin, I was probably sitting in a similar way in the press box after that first half. It wasn't exactly the most enjoyable affair.
Can we talk about the great performance that improved?
We haven't got there yet, so you're going to have to wait.
You are going to have to wait about for that, Nathaniel. But what we will talk about then is we'll look at pre-season as it were in its entirety. Now, obviously, one game left against Reading. First one behind closed doors at Riva against Kashan Pasha. Sincere Hall, the Bermudan boy, scoring the only goal for us there in a 1-1 draw. Couldn't really read anything into that because it was behind closed doors, and the only people outside of the first team who saw it were the media team and possibly some of the academy sat in the stand opposite watching on. But the Fenerbahce one, as someone who was sat in the crowd for that, I think there are, in the first half an hour, positives that we could take from it in terms of the way we kept the ball and different intricacies with Walter's system. In terms of, we got our first glimpse of the centre-backs pushing really high, Louis Coyle from the right drifting right the way over to the left, the rotations to get the ball out, the high press of Simons and Slater, the tucking in of the wingers at that point where Abdush and who was on the left, Ryan Giles. And to a similar extent, you could take positives from the Newcastle game, couldn't you, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to look at what our squad is, and the teams we were up against. Like, we were against teams that had been in the Champions League the season before, that are in the top flights of their countries, that have got quality in their teams, and we're probably not even halfway near where this squad wants to be. And even if you win in friendlies or you lose in friendlies, you don't look at the results. You're looking at the performances. You're looking at if players are understanding the system. You're looking at partnerships are being formed. If the new signings, admittedly we've got a lack of them, but if they're sort of bedding into the system and looking like they're getting to a point where obviously they're going to make a positive impact. But I think that there's obviously, we haven't had a solid 90 minutes where we've watched us and gone, yeah, we look the real deal. But we've had periods where we look really good. And then obviously we've got to make a lot of changes because we've just got half a squad at the minute. And a lot of the players that we've got to call upon are youngsters or inexperienced players, and they're getting sort of chucked in at the deep end. So yeah, I mean, it's all minutes under the belt for me. I think it's been a positive pre-season. I am interested to know both the Aussie lads your thoughts on it though, because I don't think I've seen anything on Twitter from you guys.
Yeah, Dan, you go first.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you, Ant, about the process of pre-season, and that the results obviously don't matter. That it is really about just trying to build momentum essentially for that first game of the season, and build a squad, try and get a squad that understands their roles. But I think just without sort of rehashing, the biggest concern over the preseason is the lack of signings. I think the lack of depth, and I guess for like this, I guess this playing style that has been described as as an attacking style, probably a lack of goals as well. like I understand it's where it's 4 games or whatever that they've played in this under Walter, but it just that's probably a concern when we get into the season. It seems like we're going to make ourselves very open at times, and I feel like we're definitely going to concede goals, especially early on in this first section of the season. This first 10 games, I feel like we're going to have copped a lot of silly goals, but maybe particularly with if we don't sort out another goalkeeper, because it seems to be very, I'll say, inexperienced.
It's a point, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen some of the highlights and the replays of the goals, and I'm like, what? He's not even like throwing an arm out. He's not doing anything. It's just like they go past him, and then he's, it's like it's all happened too quick for him. It goes in, and then he's sort of turning to go, oh, it's in the back of the net, which is fairly, upsetting and frustrating. So I think I'm just worried at this stage, and I guess it's down to no strikers being signed. Like where are the goals going to come from? As nice as it is to see, like Longman back on the score sheet, is he going to go and score us 10 or 15 goals?
Careful.
I know. I look.
I'm taking him off the screen so he can't talk about where.
I think for me, the issue. Sorry, Dan, you go.
No, you're right. You carry on.
I was just going to say. I think for me, the issue is that, particularly underlining the fact that we've had not many signings, is your point earlier, Ant, that yes, last year we'd only had the 2 or 3 signings at this point as well, but last season we had Traore, Doherty, Tufan, obviously. Connolly might have joined. Like we had the bones of a squad, and it meant that whilst implementing that style from Rosenia last season, the players were actually getting up to speed and fitness for that style. This season with Volta, the majority or a lot of the players who have been playing have been under 23s who might not even get much of a look in during the season, where I kind of think, well, what's the point of getting there? Not that there's no point, but them getting their fitness up and them getting attuned to the style when we've now got, Marvin joining, who I guess he's worked with Volta before, but he's missed 90% of the preseason to get his fitness base up, to get, sort of a chemistry with his teammates. If we're going to be signing more players before the start of the season, which fingers crossed we do, they're coming in having done the preseason with their previous club, not with us. And I just think it basically means we're saying first 3, 4, 5 games of the season, we're not giving ourselves as best a chance as we can to actually achieve success. And when you look last season at the fine margins that we missed the playoffs, it's not as if you can just write off games in the season and say we're going to make it a 40-game season instead of a 46-game season. So I get results don't bother me with preseason. I don't care about that. I do agree with Dan. The lack of goals for such an attacking side does underline what we're missing. Basically, I don't have any confidence in that front 3 at all. And that's including Oscar, who, outside of that purple patch at the start of his first season for us, I don't think has really delivered all that much. So it'll be interesting. I think we're sort of just hoping that, you throw a couple of forwards together and someone's bound to score at some point, but I just don't see where the goals are coming from.
Well, we tried the throw a load of attacking players together under Shota Avaladze, didn't we? We signed Alear, Tufan, Dimi, Pelkas, Salaru, Ladham Hand, Harvey Vale, Adama Traore, Tete, Oscar, all in one window. And
it's too much.
It was too much, and none of them were ever fit. Durkan Cynic. And it's on that note that we're going to move into some predictions, and we're going to start with our flop of the season.
Cynic.
Mine is Durkan Cynic. Nathaniel.
He's already flopped. I mean, I see and I comprehend that he probably at some points of his time at Hull City has genuinely been injured. But I've seen people say, how can you think that Cynic doesn't want to play for us? Well, the last whole 2 years is evidence. I'm not sure that he's ever really going to have a success. Because
I can't believe how cynical you guys are.
Very good. Very good.
So
His
who is
chan-
your flop?
His chances of playing for Hull City are extinct because he's Dodo.
Is he your flop of the season, Nathaniel? Yes or no?
Cynic, yeah, 100%.
Alex?
Look, I'm going to go somebody else because I do, as Nathaniel said, I think Cynic has already flopped. I'm going for a very controversial player. I'm going for someone that had a very high reputation coming into this season, who I think's reputation will be damaged this season based on the style of play and what we've seen in pre-season. I'm going for Jean-Michel Seri.
I thought I was going to be alone in that one.
Flop of the season in the sense that from everything that I've seen and heard in pre-season, I'm not sure he's up to playing the high-intensity style of football that Volta needs. I think his place in the team will become redundant. I think if we don't move him on in this window, it'll be the January window. And that's not at all to question the quality of the player or the quality of his contribution previously. I just don't think he's going to prove to be up to it for this season.
Yeah, sometimes systems just don't work for players. And it just sounds like this might not be Seri's style, unfortunately, because I love him. I don't want him to go.
Here or in Saudi, though, Alex? That's the question.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we've established Will agrees. Dan?
Yeah, I was going to, well...
He's going to what?
Well, at least let me give a reason then.
Andy's frozen.
Let me give some reasoning at least
for
why I think. Same as Alex.
Dan?
Look, I've already made reference to this player. I am really, really concerned about our goalkeeper situation, and so I'm putting Panda down as our flop of the season. I have no confidence, and I don't know what we're going to do about that. It sounds like we're hoping that one of the other goalkeepers suddenly becomes fit, but I feel like we actually just need to go and sign someone with some experience.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think as much as I love Tim as a bloke, he's just an absolute vibe. And Harvey Cartwright's a good lad as well. All three of them have maximum 105 minutes of championship experience between them as we go into this season. As our three goalkeepers, that can't run. And it's only 105 minutes because we had Ingram and Baxter both injured at once. So
there was that rumour out there, Darlow. I'd love him back.
Yeah, well, there was a comment about that, and I think we should just address this now. Will, did you have something to say on it?
It'll be getting way too much wage-wise. It's not happening.
It's simply Burnsy saying he's a good player. We were interested in. The club should try. And I love Burnsy, but I don't think that's what the club should be looking for in terms of taking a player off Leeds' hands who'll be on massive money already and is like 33 now. So we need someone with championship experience, but not nearing the end of their career championship experience kind of thing.
No, see, I disagree there because goalkeepers' primes are like in their 30s. They reach the prime in their early 30s. That's where they're usually at the best. Panda's problem is that because I've actually put Panda down as my flop. I thought I was going to be alone in that as well, so good catch, Dan. But you see, the problem is, I think the problem that Panda's got this season is because of what happened with Allsop last season, it has put immense pressure on Panda to come straight into the side and perform this season. It's easy to forget the lad hasn't played proper competitive football in months. He was then excluded from the matchday squads towards the end of the season as well. I don't know if that from the outside starts to look a bit like Rosini was saying a bit of FU to Adjan because he knew he was going. But he's young. So he's obviously still got a lot of experience to gain in that sense. He did come with a high rep. The Fortuna Sittard fans absolutely loved him, so he must be a decent goalkeeper. The problem is he's young, he's inexperienced at this level, and there's a lot of pressure on him. And every single mistake is now going to be under the microscope like it was Allsop, because of what happened in the goalkeeper situation, it's created a lose-lose situation for Panda. Unless he comes in and is an absolute world beater every game, he's going to be hung, drawn, and quartered. And I think that's what's happening. He's overthinking his performances at the minute in the friendlies because he understands that the fans are probably just going to jump on him instantly. And I think it's quite tough for him. So for us to maybe bring in another goalkeeper, like someone like Darlow, I mean, you can loan deals are all right. It doesn't matter about his wages on loans because you can sometimes just pay a percentage of them. I think if we said to Leeds, "Oh, we'll pay 40% of his wages," they'd probably let him come here. But it's to just have someone to take him out of the limelight, because as good as promising as Lothar Tyler, Cartwright, Foster are, like you said, they are young and inexperienced again. So you're just replacing young and inexperienced with young and inexperienced. So we need a goalkeeper that we can be more reliable. I think is probably the word. But yeah, I think he'll struggle.
I don't even think it's the Allsop situation per se that's created the pressure. Because if that had stayed behind closed doors, I think that had happened. I don't think there'd be. It was Adrian saying it all in the Q&A that's created all the pressure, really. It's not the actual situation itself, and I think that's what it is. When Adrian says that, instantly it creates, like you say, it creates the pressure that there was no pressure really on Panda at all, and suddenly there's all the pressure on Panda because the owner has essentially come out and said he was my choice, my player. In a roundabout way, essentially saying he should be playing. He's the best keeper at the club. Ergo, he's one of the reasons we sacked our manager. And it's pressure that he doesn't deserve on him. And like you say, if he makes even the slightest error, he's going to get abuse for something that's out of his control.
I will say as well, but it was a reasonable transfer fee for us as a championship club to be paying for a young player. Was it 1.5 million or 1 million or something like that?
For Panda, yeah.
So you think?
I think Sittard owed Adrian a favour or something money wise. Was the rumour.
So I think that sort of plays into it. But absolutely, what Will said was what I was going to say. Is I think ultimately the expectations and pressure have come from Adrian himself by bigging Panda up as much as he has, and unfortunately, for me, I didn't dislike or have as many issues with Allsop as some did. So I would have thought, in a perfect world, you'd have Allsop and Panda, and you'd have Panda as your number one to start the season, give him the fresh chance, and if he couldn't perform, you could potentially still play Allsop. There'd still be space for him. But I totally take that other people just didn't rate his saving ability or that sort of thing. But like you said, Ant, I think just getting a lone keeper in, I think, is probably the way to go. Whether that's Darlow, whether that's a Premier League, goalkeeper who's access to requirements. I think I saw Baz made a very, very offhand comment about Everson at Leicester, and I sometimes find it interesting with Baz whether he's just pulling an example out of thin air or whether he's pulling a name out that we've perhaps been in talks with. But someone like that, like an excess keeper at a Premier League club, might be the way to go.
I'd take Dan Everson, definitely. Some shouts for flop of the season in live chat are Cody Drama, interesting, agreeing with Seri, and, of course, Nathaniel Winkley combined lineups.
Yeah, that's the winner.
No, that
doesn't even have to be said, that's just known.
They're always amazing. And everyone is always like, "Oh, you've done a good one this week." That's a surprise. I mean, that adds up over time, I think. But I mean, Drama is an interesting one because I think maybe every time we sign another right back, you think, "Oh, well, that's Kyle. He's gone." So maybe Kyle will again prove himself to be a reliable player, which is going to be a tough season with a few players as we do have. Maybe actually it'll just be Kyle doing better than Drama.
I think the good thing about bringing Drama in is that if Coyle gets battered from pillar to post like he did last season, we've actually got somebody who can play there that's not Regan Slater. So
Another comment in chat takes us on to our next pre-season prediction category, asking if Tim doesn't make the playoffs, will Adrian sack him or give him more time? Thank you for that, Scott. We have predicted whether Tim Walter will last the full season. Simple yes or no answer. Let's start with Dan. What have we got?
Oh.
I flipped back and forward a couple of times and I'm still doing it now.
Let me see. Give me a second. No.
Okay.
And I think interestingly as well, the way to expand on it would be, do you think he would quit or do you think he'd be sacked?
I think
The
I
former.
think either of those is as likely as each other.
Mm.
You get to January and like we're not in. If he gets to January not in a good position and wants to sign players and is getting dictated as about who should be playing and whatnot, then that would be enough to make any self-respecting manager quit. But I also think like if we get to January and as we've already talked about, there's potential for some failures in this system while we get sort of up to speed with it. If we get to January in a really poor position in the in or around the relegation zone with a horrible first half of the season, I could 100% see that him just going. I mean, so but I don't know. I hope he's successful, but I'm finding myself sort of every month questioning Ajun's decision making more and more. Not that I'm not grateful for everything that he has done for the club. He's done a lot of amazing things, but sometimes the involvement in the football side of it gets a little bit questionable.
See, everybody, you can have nuance in the debate. It's almost.
No, you can't.
It's almost.
You're a bed
go back
winter
to
on ask you,
Dan.
sir.
You want EHAB back? I can. Right, I think that's what you want, right?
Oh, you
He
took the
have,
words straight out of my mouth. That's exactly what I said.
True,
Ehab sometimes likes my posts on Facebook. I keep going between them as well. I think the problem is that, I mean, you're trying to add logic into such a crazy summer where there just hasn't been any. But for me, that Adjan has made such a rod for his own back in getting rid of Rosinia and putting everything into getting Tim Walter in and saying about this style of play and how much he wants it, and this ideally is the excitement factor that he wants to bring for the fans to watch. That
Can I just say quickly, just sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of style of play, I've watched pretty much every minute of pre-season. This tomorrow, the Reading game, and the Cash and Pasha game are the only two games I won't have seen. And apart from the second half against Fiorentina, it was very similar to Rosinia, I thought.
Yeah, but is that because they're still weaning out of the instinctual decisions that Rosinia would get them to make? Obviously, they had 18 months of play a safer pass, go backwards if you can, don't take a risk. I'd like to think it's that. Obviously, he's only had this pre-season with them so far. It does take a while, as we've seen, sometimes months for players to get into the full groove and understanding of the system. And I'd like to think that players are still a bit reluctant to be taking that risk and asking more questions offensively because they're so used to being, no, just keep the ball, focus on keeping the ball. Don't play that passing behind because you might lose the ball. I think that's what it's that teething issue stage between. But for me, that because of this style of play that Adjan obviously wants, and we have seen in periods of this preseason, he has to see the season out with him, despite where we finish, because he made that decision last season. I think Volta's more likely to quit than he is to be sacked on the basis of the club aren't doing, obviously providing him with the players that he needs. It's not Volta's fault we're not signing these players. It's whoever's in charge of doing that, whether or not the loss of Dambra to Stoke. Yeah, the loss of Dambra might be a bigger miss than we all expected him to be. Was he, maybe the bit of glue that kept it all together? But realistically, we've seen the last couple of years that how we do signings under Adjan is long. We take absolutely ages to announce players, which suggests that our sort of negotiation tactics are drawn out and complex compared to other teams. I mean, how long were we trying to sign Thomas Asante, and then Coventry just came in and within 24 hours and took him? It shows you that you can sign up if you desperately want to sign a player and you want him in your system, you can sign him like that. Coventry did it. The guy was about to sign for us, and then George Boateng got on the phone and said, "What are you doing, mate? Come here." And he went, "All right, then." It's sorted. We just seem to make such a meal.
Probably betrayal that, by the way, from Boateng.
Yeah. I mean, even Coventry's announcement video, they had the call from Boateng coming up on the phone. Other teams are taking the mick out of us, our transfer activity. So we just need to sort it out in terms of we need to hire somebody, obviously, to be in charge of that side of things, because we are really at risk of starting this season with a really, really poor squad. And I think if Volta has this squad till January, we're going to be in the bottom six. And then what do we do in January? So
A point
You-
I and others
Sorry.
made on Twitter. Sorry, Dan, you go.
I was just going to say, do you think that is, I was just thinking about, like, is to do with, Ajun's media background and like the different ways, like obviously you're trying to, in that media world, you're trying to develop these really long-term relationships. Not about just getting someone to sign a contract for a short term. You're trying to like develop these relationships you can come back to over and over and over. And that's his default is the whining and dining and like trying to set it up in that way rather than just going like, as Coventry and others are doing, going, this is football. You want to come play good football? Come to us.
I think it's anybody's guessing it. I think Adjan probably had a lot of personal touch in a lot of the previous transfers, and maybe because of his new role with Fenerbahce, he doesn't have the time to do that now. And obviously, maybe Tan doesn't have the same sort of X factor in being able to lure players in, or maybe he doesn't have the time to do it himself. And obviously, then just saying to a player or just speaking to his agent briefly and saying, "Look, we kind of want to play exciting football and get promoted," but not having that sort of extra bit of, like we know how Adjan is. He probably song and dance about it like Greatest Showman, coming into the room and his players going, "Yeah, I want to be a part of this," but we've not got that this season, and players are being sold elsewhere. It's anybody's guess because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But what we do know is it's obviously messy and drawn out, and it needs to change.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Because sorry, you go, Joe, first. No.
A point I and others have made on Twitter is the way we seem to be structured behind the scenes seems a bit of a mess in terms of we have Adjan, chairman, but has a lot of other business interests, so is a bit sort of hands off on quite a lot of things. Then we've got Tan, vice chairman, literally does everything. And I spoke to Tan the other night, and I said, "You're working 24-hour days at the minute." He says, "Yeah, it's part of the job. Part of the job. I love it." But it's literally just him, or it seems to be just him from the outside looking in terms of running the club day to day, transfers, etc. We didn't replace Jim Rodwell when his time as interim CEO, when the takeover first happened, ended. And Adjan made quite clear at the time he wasn't going to replace Jim Rodwell. And I think that's a mistake. Jim you can criticise him whatever you want, but he had experience on different EFL boards and would have been crucial, especially in that autumn of chaos when we'd signed all these players, but they were all injured, etc., etc. And then Lee Darnborough going means that's more work for Tan to do. We need, some people alongside Tan as CEOs, as directors of football, as heads of recruitment, because this mysterious brain team that consists of what we know, the scouts, and Mertan Agil, Mustafa Yokes, and there's another guy who's always wandering around, but I can't remember his name, but I don't know what he does. So there needs to be more of a network around Tan to help run the club and help get these deals done quicker, I think. Alex, you go.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say quickly, I'm surprised that we haven't, outside of Marvin, we haven't seemed to target the German market more, because I think one of the strengths last season with the way Rosenior and Adjan operated was, for rightly or wrongly, a lot of the players had previously worked with Rosenior or at least knew Rosenior, and therefore it was a lot easier to get them to sign for the club. Whereas this summer, it doesn't seem as if we've really taken advantage of, or maybe we've tried behind the scenes. Obviously, like Ant said, we're guessing to an extent, but it doesn't seem as if we've gone after players that would already know Walter from previous times working with him. And I think that sort of puts you behind the eight ball to begin with, because players are then having to, I guess, come on board with a style of play that they necessarily haven't actually seen or experienced. And it's a lot harder to convince a Kiefer Moore that it's worth coming to Hull and making the move and taking the gamble, so to speak, when he could go to Sheffield United, which maybe didn't have the greatest season last season, but at least they're a known quantity in that sense. I'm sure the money doesn't hurt either, and things like that. I'm sure that all comes into it, but it does feel like this summer, like you say, Adjan doesn't seem as hands-on, which when you're whining and dining players, that can sometimes be quite appealing to say we've got this nice hands-on owner. and the manager's a bit more of an unknown quantity, which makes things tough as well. And to answer the question on whether he'll be here for the full season, it really does seem to have a lot of parallels to the Slutsky season. You know, a lot of players leaving at the start of the season, an unknown manager or an inexperienced manager in England, potentially leaking a lot of goals to start the season as well. And I do struggle to see him here past Christmas, unless we have a crazy end to the window and we sign a whole bunch of players. But I just don't see it happening.
If it's like the Slutsky era, can we sign all the players that have scored against us?
There'll be a few of them.
Jackson Irvine, Nua Dicko. So that's Dan. You said he wouldn't last the season as well, didn't you? Have I got that right?
Yes, that's what I said.
So to get back on track, both of the Aussies, for the want of a better phrase, have said that Tim Walter will not last the season. Will, what do you think?
I think he will last the season, but if he does go, he's going to be quitting rather than getting sacked. For similar reasons that already has been said. I think Adjun can risk sacking someone for the results based on the fact that, firstly, he says he's fine with us losing a game that's a goal-filled game rather than winning it, like 1-0. And secondly, he sacked Rossini because of his style of football and brought someone in who he feels is the antithesis of that style of football and someone who's going to bring in a much more positive style. If he then sacks him because of what's happening, then it just makes him look a massive idiot. And I don't think he's willing to do that. I think it would require Walter leaving rather than being pushed. But I think he'll stay for the full season regardless. No matter where we finish, he might go the day after the season finishes, like Liam.
Yeah, I agree. Nathaniel?
Well, to be fair, if even during this podcast we heard that Walter had resigned, I wouldn't actually blame him, because at the moment, even though we've made about the same amount of signings that we had done the previous year, we've lost about 19 players and we've only gained 2, because Giles we actually had last year as well. I mean, the starting 11 is not dreadful, but it's going to be very difficult. I think you probably can get through August with just about 11 players, as we did in that Premier League season one time. It's only after then, if we don't get players in during that busy period where there's a lot more games and Saturday, Tuesday, so it'll be very difficult. Logically, I don't see him staying. I think the more I think about it, the more reasons I see to be concerned about this season. We're just sort of waiting on who we sign, if anyone. If I had to bet on it, I'd say that he would go. But Adjun is going to be under a huge amount of pressure and face a lot of criticism if it doesn't work out, because I feel like pretty much everyone feels like we had progress under Rossini and we've, thrown all of that out the window, and we've started again from scratch, and that will take a long time.
Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting everything on a list so that it's easier for us at the end of the season when we look back at this. And did you say yes or no?
I said he'll last the season, but is more likely to quit. But I don't think it'll happen. Same as Will.
Yeah. Okay. All good. So we've got a 50-50 split there for yes and no's. You're going to struggle finding a new coach going into the what Tiger Tube says there in terms of Walter has been, in terms of implementing his style of play, he has been massively hindered by the fact that all of the business is going to be so late. With a new manager coming in and a totally unique style of play, you need a lot of those players in day one pre-season or to come in while you're out in Turkey, and that hasn't happened. On Walter, Stephen Franklin says he will walk because at the moment the lack of players coming in feels like he's been lied to, and that we will struggle with this team to stay up if signings don't come?
I don't think he'd walk immediately, because I feel like this situation should have been explained to him when he was taking the job. I feel like they would have said, we're probably going to have a bit of a tough summer, but leave it with us and we'll sort it by like January or something. I don't think he'd walk immediately. I think by the end of the season.
You would only leave on September 1st if you haven't made any signings.
I don't believe that for one second when Adjan decided to hire him, he said like, "Oh, I'm going to back you massively in summer and we're going to go for it." I think he'll have been well aware of the job he was taking. That's what I'm choosing to believe. I feel like that's a logical thing, but who knows?
Like you said earlier, we're trying to apply We're trying to apply logic to a summer that has had none, or words to that effect that you said. We've just spoken about the lack of players that have come in, and with 3 signings made at this stage, we technically only 2 of them new. Signing of the season. I've gone for Cody Drama, brackets, actual one definitely hasn't signed yet. And do you agree?
Yeah, I went with Cody Drama. Only on the basis of we don't know if Giles is still going to be here come the end of this transfer window, so I kind of ruled him out. And then with Malem, I just don't know enough about him. I've seen that he's meant to be a number 10. He apparently is a number 10 who likes to win possession. It just seems like that they're describing a number 6, but saying he's a number 10, so it's quite bizarre. But no, I'm going with Drama because he's played in this league before and he's played really well. If you go to any of the clubs that he's been on loan to, they all absolutely love him. So the Luton fans said that they'd have had him back in a heartbeat, and they're a side that's just been relegated from the Premier League. So that to me says he's good enough for a side that would be chasing promotion. He won Player of the Season at Cardiff, and he only played like 20 games for him. So obviously a decent player if you can win Player of the Season after half a year. And the Birmingham fans all say he was one of their rare shining lights in what was a really poor season last season. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see what he can do. He's young. He's only 22. He's looked good from what I've seen in pre-season so far, and I think he can probably help. I mean, him and Giles realistically are probably a bit of a dream fullback pairing if they're both here, because they're both very similar in what they do going up the line and trying to support in the offensive side of things as well. So yeah, I'm just going to go Drama on that logic.
Will, is it Giles? Is it Drama? Or is it Malem?
Well, I might as well, since I'm the one who watches German football on the podcast, go for Marvin Malem because he's not a lot of people don't know what he's like. I can only just vaguely remember bits and bobs about him, but I think he'll because he knows Walter and he knows the style that Walter's a basic idea of the style that Walter's going to play. I think I'm not saying it'll take him like no time at all to implement himself into the squad, but I think he'll find it a little easier than maybe some signings would, and I think he'll have a positive season because I think he's essentially going to be the replacement, I'd say, for Tufan in the midfield. Really, he's going to be that one the Tufan left the club, work rate wise was fantastic. And he's going to have that similar sort of work rate. He can pop up with assists and goals as well. I think he's going to have a really solid season personally. Maybe he'll be. And because the other 2 choices are Giles and Drama, it was kind of a default. That's nothing against those 2, but Drama's always been a solid fullback at this level. And Giles, if he's playing a more attacking style, can be good, but based on what I've seen of pre-season, he's not really done a lot yet. So
pre-season, though, I think it does need to be.
I know pre-season.
No, as in not just because pre-season doesn't mean anything, but Giles has been playing left wing as well.
It's pointless him playing left wing because he's definitely not going to be playing left wing when the season starts. So play him at left back where he actually needs to play to.
He might actually be playing. If we do keep him, though, he might actually be playing left wing because we don't.
If he's playing left wing,
I mean,
we're screwed.
The only choices we've got at the minute is Longman.
The major weakness of the squad, from what I've seen so far, is on the left hand side.
Yeah,
so
it's weird.
we need more on that left side.
the left-hand side, we're playing with 2 left-backs, and that's where all of the problems are, weirdly. We had 4 left-backs at the last friendly, and Fairlong's gone out on loan, so he's definitely not going to be in the running for Young Player of the Season, which we'll get onto later. Alex, Malem, Drama, or Giles?
Yeah, I think in that choice I'll have to go with Drama, but I would pose the question, if we're not counting Giles because he was here on loan last season, can we count players like Longman and
yes, we can.
Xavier Simons who also weren't here
Don't
last
give
season?
him the opportunity.
Oscar's opinion.
Oscar's opinion as well. You know, they're just like new signings, boys. We've got 3 more, but no, I would go Drama. I think for the same reasons that Ant said. I think he comes with a good reputation. I do question. It's funny that our first signing was probably in a position that we did already have a capable, strong first team player in Coyle, and Drama, I think, was a bit frustrated at a lack of opportunities at Leeds. So if he's not in, I think Coyle sounds like he's touch and go for the first game anyway. So maybe that gives Drama an opportunity to start. But if he's fighting with the club captain for a spot in the team, it could be interesting. But I'd have to go with him.
Yeah, Nathaniel.
Well, I said Vinagre last season because we'd only made 3 signings, and I know you officially put me down as Marlon because I think he's played in the Bundesliga and that's a pretty good division, so I'll go for him. But unofficially, I refuse to answer the question because the chances that one of the 2 signings we've made, or completely new players we've brought in, are going to be the best out of hopefully 8, 9, 10 signings is unlikely.
Yeah, so we've all gone Malem or Drama with an asterisk so far. Dan, complete the set.
Yeah, Drama. I just think
with an asterisk.
Yeah. Look, I don't even worry about who cares about the asterisk. I actually just genuinely think we've been crying out for a genuine young attacking right-sided fullback for 2 or 3 years now. So it's nice that we finally got one who, has a bit of experience, has something about him. He's well liked by the clubs that he's been at. So I think I am looking forward to seeing him, get an opportunity, and run up and down that line this season. So I think I'm willing to. I'll just put my name down next to Drama.
All right. Well, that was easy.
Put me down for Carvalho on loan. I think I might just get him back. That'll be fine.
How many siders have you had again?
Just the one.
Yeah.
Anyway, in chat, Sorrow Plays asks, who do we think is going to be our shining light this season? Last season was Greaves. This season, they see Slater going to be the player we all look at. So let's jump in with our overall player of the season, shall we?
I'm really interested for everyone's on this one.
It is.
Can I go first? I'm going to go for Omer. I just think that he is going to have a fantastic season for us. I think he is. When you look at this squad and you're looking at who's going to provide, who's going to make things happen, he's one of the very few amount of names that pop up to me when I look at this squad in terms of real quality. And I think that the last 6 months that he had with us last season and how he got better as the season ended, I think that'll have done him the world of good because now he's got a feel for this league and what to expect in terms of the physicality and the demands. And then going into this season, I think we're playing a style that's going to suit him more. I'd like to see him more central. I think he's naturally meant to be a winger, but I think just from what I've seen of him in pre-season, he's really good at that rotating and just sort of having a free roam on the pitch. I think he's the kind of player you just say, go out and play. Don't tell him where to play. Just let him go out there. And he'll make things happen for us. And I think his free kick was decent. Yeah, maybe the keeper was a little bit suspect, but it was a bit of a knuckleball. I think they're quite hard to save. It was good technique. And I think if he gets a couple of goals in the first few games, I think he might sort of give himself that confidence to really crack on. Because we saw he had a few chances. He missed them last season, but confidence in these players is massive, and I think he seems to be running on it at the minute, and he's taking the responsibility of being, I'm going to be the one who's going to create stuff this season. So yeah, I'm excited for him.
I agree with every word you've said there, and I have also gone for Abdus with the little brackets of the actual one who currently haven't signed yet. Again, does anyone else join Ant and I in the Abdush loving?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh,
One
okay.
of our better players last season after only 6 months, and with the fact we haven't got any other attacking players, he's going to have to carry the team because players like Carvalho and Delap aren't here.
Yeah. Anything to add, Alex?
No, I think I mean I nominated him more from wishful thinking because I do think it's going to be an interesting season for him. He had the 1 assist last season for Greaves at Huddersfield, no goals. Did hit the post a number of times. Did have a lot of opportunities where on another day they go in. So I think getting that end product will be crucial because as you guys have said, like we don't have too many other sources of goals. So I think maybe a bit of wishful thinking that I think we could have a good season. If he's our player of the season, it means that we're probably going to have a reasonable season because I think he'll produce and be really, really like needed or required for us across that front three, whether it's as a central number 10 or out wide on the right. So I think he's definitely our brightest spark this season, and so hopefully he has a good one.
Yeah. Dan and Will, then, if you've not gone for Abdush, who have you gone for?
I've gone at the other end of the pitch. I think Greaves was such a massive loss for us, and we're really going to need someone in that back line to really step up and take control and take charge of that and organise the defence and the midfield. And so I think this is an opportunity for Jones to really take another step forward. I'm assuming that means that Will agrees with me.
It could mean that, yes.
I really think Alfie Jones is a player who could really put his foot, put his mark on the team, and become a standout player this season.
Will, anything to add?
Pretty much the same reasons. Now Greaves has gone, it gives opportunity for Jones to step out of the shadow that he had over him, essentially. I mean, people forget Jones did win Player of the Season in Rossini's first season in charge as well. So he has shown that he has shown consistently that he's very good. I don't think he's ever been really that bad for us at any point while he's been here, really. And I think it's an opportunity for him to start afresh, being essentially the main man in defence going forward. Hopefully, I've got nothing against McLaughlin, but hopefully we do get another centre back in who's a little better overall that can go next to him. But I do think I think it'll be not a bad season, but a more middling season. And usually when that happens, the attacking players don't stand out. It's usually the defensive players that stand out a bit more. And I think for that reason, I think Jones will have a good season despite the possible goals that we might leak every game.
Yeah. Okay. What have we got left? Let's go young player of the season next. Will, who?
I'm going to say Stan Ashby.
Okay.
Stan Ashby's going to break into the side and make an impression. Maybe not a massive impression, but I think he's going to be someone who's going to live up to his name to an extent, I think.
Love that. I'm a big fan of that pick. Stan's a good lad. Left-footed centre-half, Republic of Ireland underage international.
Him and Jones, that could be the one.
Only 17 years old at the minute. He'll be 18 by the time the season ends. Alex, do you agree?
Yeah, I think. Oh, look, I'd love to see him break through, and it starts to make you feel pretty old when sons of players that you've watched go around are playing. That's certainly the case. But I've gone with the scorer of half of our preseason goals in Sincere Hall. I mean, look, he may end up getting a loan move and getting the opportunity for more game time elsewhere. So this prediction might age poorly, but I'd love to see him given the opportunity in the first team. I think he's shown some capability. And look, if we're going to draw parallels to the Slutsky season, it would be very similar to Jared Bowen breaking through and getting that opportunity or that responsibility as being one of the leading lights in the forward line. I don't actually know what his minutes have been like in the last couple of friendlies. I sort of lost track of off the bench. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to see after the second half.
Yeah, I mean, because he's a full international, isn't he? I think I saw he's
under 20 for Bermuda.
Okay.
But I think
he will probably end up being a full international for him.
Yeah, I think he definitely will be. Yeah,
which I think I saw someone talking about the potential of having a full international who, without any senior minutes for the team, would be quite an unusual sort of situation. But look, hopefully he has a good season.
Yeah, I like Cine a lot as the resident self-proclaimed academy expert. Sin's a good player, and I said towards the back end of last season, I didn't think he was quite there yet, but coming in against Kashan Pasha and Fenerbahce, he's shut me up, to be fair to him, so fair play. Nathaniel, who have you gone for?
I mean, Longman's pretty young, isn't he?
No,
to be fair,
I
am going to jump ahead, and this is the answer for both of the next ones if we're going to do most improved player. Bit
Which we are.
weird because he's fair enough. I mean, I can have a nap for 5 minutes. I don't mind the shout that Seri's going to be a flop, and so the other thing that we've seen in preseason is that Xavi Simons has been pretty good. So I'd happily go for him. And to be honest, I think he was pretty good the first season we had him, and I think it was probably just a bad loan move, or not the right club for him to go to Fleetwood. So I don't think the fact he didn't play much it means he's a bad player. I think it's not the best place for him to go, so I'll go Simons. Yeah,
I agree. I've put Xavi. I think he'll play a much bigger role this season because he's a bit more of the profile of. If you look at Okay Yakushlu, who we were targeting, he's a bit more of the profile of. He's sort of a bit more. He's a bit bigger. He's a bit taller.
Big lad, isn't he, Simons?
Yeah, a bit more physical than Seri is, and he'll play that deeper role. Ant, who have you gone for?
Yeah, I did Xavi Simons as well. I think he's been really good, really promising from what I've seen in pre-season. And I think it's easy to forget that when he came through at Chelsea, he was actually a centre back when we first started. So I feel like him going into midfield, he's that natural number 6 that we've kind of missed. And like we say, I think his loan spell, similar to how we've had a few players that seem to do all right with us, and then we send them out on loan to a level below, and they do worse. It's bizarre. Like Harry Vaughan and Brandon Fleming are probably another couple of examples as well. But like you say, sometimes it's just the place that they go, the system, the manager, the atmosphere. Sometimes it just can't be right. And I think he was promising. Obviously, a lot of people were quite surprised we sent him out on loan because he seemed pretty good coming on off the bench and things like that for us the first season, and he started promisingly this season. And I think that given the fact that we're probably not going to sign that many more midfielders, he's going to have a role to play. And like we say, we've needed a bit of physicality and grit in the middle, and I think he'll give us that.
Yeah, Dan.
I've also gone Simons. So I think I was saying to Alex not long ago in our other chat that he's a player that I thought was really, really good. When he was here previously, before he went on loan, and I was surprised he went out on loan. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him back in the black and amber. So.
Yeah, nice. A lot of love for Xavier Simons there. It's deserved. Good lad. Should we go to Nathaniel just turned his camera off.
Asleep.
Right. Well, we'll rattle through an easy one then, I think. Top scorer. I've just written Vamos on my little notepad in front of me. Do we all agree that it's Oscar Estupinian?
Yes.
No.
I think players that are here.
Well, Will, I'd like to see who you're going to say who's going to score more than him because we haven't got anyone.
Ryan Longman.
Oh,
Yes. Top goal scorer in the championship.
I've gone for Ömer, but for similar sort of wishful thinking that hopefully he has a cracking season. But
that's the main reason I've picked Longman. Is because I want him to.
Yeah. Valid. That was easy. When I did this prep, I thought we were going to do a goal of the season predicted winner, and I put Longman down for that because
Alfie Jones is going to do what Greaves couldn't, and actually score one of those goals where he goes the entire length of the pitch.
No, it'll be Longman. Longman every week. We'll have too many to choose from.
You trying to vote on goal of the season is going to be a nightmare because you'll just see Longman all the time. You won't know which one to pick.
Well, it'll be him and Oscar, only players scoring this season. So.
Longman's highest scoring season was 8 goals in League One.
Yeah, well, to be honest, 8 might be the highest scoring this season.
And then every season from then, he's not scored more than 3.
That's
Scored well, though.
In all competitions,
And he could still be our top scorer.
He could still be. As it stands, he could well still be. The 3 goals will have him as top scorer at the end of the season. And they were all 3 bangers from 40 yards.
Speaking of Ryan Longman, he's the one I've put as my most improved.
He can't improve.
Not because I think he's terrible anyway, and I really like Ryan, and loan Ryan Longman was incredible, but I just think in terms of since that loan spell, the fan perception of him has been diminished, and I think this season Ryan Longman regains that, and he gets a new contract midway through the season because he's played well. Yeah, I've gone for Ryan Longman, and I'm sure Nathaniel is buzzing. Do you agree with me though, Nathaniel, in terms of who is most improved?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's Simons, but yeah, I mean, I feel like young player of the season's also pretty much the same as most improved player. I think it's kind of the idea that they're not quite good enough to be the player of the season, but maybe we don't expect them to do well. So it could be one of a few people, but Simons is my bet.
Yeah, Dan?
I guess this is where the asterisk comes in. I'll go Giles as most improved because I think he was. Didn't really think he was that impressive last season.
Jacob played above him, didn't he, for quite a lot?
So, I think he's one who might actually, if he gets in a rhythm and gets going, then could actually show, like sort of the levels that he's shown previously. So I'm hoping that he can be most improved.
Asterisk.
Yeah, with the asterisk.
If he stays.
Most improved for Middlesbrough.
Middlesbrough would probably argue we can't get any better.
I've done the same actually. I put Ryan Giles in brackets if he stays, and then if not, I've actually put in brackets through gritted teeth Ryan Longman. I think it's just the thing is with Giles, I think we signed him as this fullback who's meant to be, he had 20 odd assists in the 2 seasons before he came to us, and I don't know whether it was just Rosini's system that hindered him, but we just didn't see any offensive capabilities from him, and he doesn't convince me defensively. I think a lot of Middlesbrough fans say the same thing. If you don't play him as like a wing back, you play him as a natural fullback, he's shocking because he cannot one-on-one defend. And then if we've got a system where he can't go forwards, then he can't defend and he's not contributing in an offensive sense. So he's not really giving us anything. And I think we saw that last season. And obviously that's why Jacob ended up getting the position back. So I'd like to think that in a more offensive system with a bit more freedom to go forwards under Volta, hopefully that we would see the Ryan Giles that we all expected. But obviously if he ends up shipping off to Middlesbrough, then I think Longman has shown signs that within this system, he could maybe flourish and see the Ryan Longman that we saw in the first 6 months of his loan spell. I think the only question marks we ever had on Longman, I don't think you can ever question his effort levels. He will always give 100%. It's just that he falls short quality-wise. So you'd like to see this season that productivity in the final third is better this season because he averages at about 5 goal contributions a season. That's going to have to be at least 10 for me to be convinced that he can make it here long term.
Okay. Alex, before we come to you, I just want to say, Dan, does the little one agree with Ant that it'll be Giles, if not through gritted teeth, Longman?
Yeah, look, Liam, he's watched a couple of games. Not named after Liam Rosina, okay? Just want to put it out there. Liam Neeson.
Liam Ridgewell.
Oh, God. All right, so Alex and I were talking the other day about if you could make a worst 11 of signings, and Liam Ridgewell was a name that got thrown up as someone who would belong in that worst 11. Yeah, look, I think it's certainly going to be an interesting one. I think, yeah, I don't know. Short answer, yeah, he'll agree. He'll agree with what Ant says. He says Ant seems to know what he's talking about.
Nice, Alex.
One of the few that do.
I've got an interesting one. I've gone Sean McLaughlin, which I think could be an interesting one. Again, probably with the asterisk if he's still here, purely because of what I've seen and heard over pre-season, that he seems to be adapting quite well to Volta's style. And I think, he did have his moments last season where he showed his flaws and the I guess, missing elements in his game. Like, I mean, Dan and I actually watched a game together against Swansea where I think he got taken off at halftime because we were 2-0 down because his pace kind of exposed us a few times against the Swansea attack. But it's easy to forget that he did actually have quite a capable season for us. I think it was the year before, where his range of passing and I think we saw even early last season, I think it was Stoke, where he was able to launch a few balls over the top and really set some attacks up quite well. That he is someone that could quite suit Volta's style of play. So if he does stay, I could see him being one that surprises a few and gets more game time than people might expect.
Willie looked poised to say something whilst Alex was talking. Who have you gone for?
It's not who we've gone for. I was just wondering about what Anne said about the 10 goal contributions. How many times have we actually had players who get 10 goal contributions in recent times anyway?
I think last season we had like 5, didn't we? The lap, Philogene.
10 in total.
10 goal. That's goals and assists in total.
Yeah, exactly. How many assists do you think some of them actually got? Because I bet it's less than you think. Because everyone thought Tufan had made loads of assists.
Even if it's nine goals and 1 assist, it's still decent for me. If Longman scores 9 goals and gets 1 assist, I'm fine with that. That's an improvement for me. I'm saying his average on a season is 3 goals and 2 assists. That tends to be what he gets if you look at his stats.
Well, I feel like for a winger, 1 assist, that's not a good season then.
Of course it is, because he scored 8 goals and contributed to 9 with another assist. Yeah, scores them or assists them, there's still a goal contribution. That's what they are.
You're not really going to define it based on one contribution to get to a good point.
Anyway, what was the question? Sorry. It's gone midnight now, so I've completely blacked out.
Most improved.
Ryan Longman.
Okay.
Well, to be honest, purely based on that second half against Fiorentina. I know it's pre-season, but he came on and he was superb.
Okay, very nice. Final thing then is our final finishing position after 46 games. This genuinely could be anywhere. So
there's a couple of positions that definitely won't pick.
Well, yeah, definitely. So, where should we go? Well, Danny in chat has said 22nd. So
optimistic.
All right, then, Alex. We'll start with you. Where have you gone?
Not too ridiculous.
I'm not that bad. I've said 13th. I think it'll be somewhere around mid-table in the end. I think we might start quite slowly and then be a bit of panic. But I can't see us finishing the window without making drastic additions. I think Adrian loves a good deadline day, so that even if we did get to deadline day without making a single additional signing from here, we would still find a way to make 7 or 8 more signings on deadline day. So I think one way or another we'll get players in of various qualities perhaps, but I think once they do settle by, call it October, November, you'd hopefully start to see a bit of an improvement up the table. Look, maybe we could challenge for the playoffs if everything kind of comes together, but I think that's a big if. So I'll say 13th.
Yeah, 13th. Dan?
Slightly more pessimistic. I had 16th as a number in my head, but I really just think that the start of this season is going to we're just going to be playing catch ups for the rest of the season. I'm really worried about how we're going to start off defensively and that we're going to cop a heap of goals. have a shocking goal difference and just limited points and just be trying to play catch up for the second half or the second 2/3 of the season. That's my concern.
Yeah, I'm a blend of the two of what the both of you have said, and I've gone for 14th. I think it will be a bit of a recovery job in terms of the first few weeks might be a bit difficult, but then I think we will recover and be solid mid-table to maybe try and kick on with a stable core next season, depending on if we sign 7 loans or not. Nathaniel.
First. Oh, sorry, that's after we get rid of the tickets next season. Well, last season I finished predicted 11th, and I was thinking maybe going into this episode 13th. I can't decide, so 12th. I think it could be a slow start. We'll probably improve after maybe some time in January. And I just hope that that's enough to keep Bolter in the job, and as you said, hopefully sign more permanent players and loan players, because you can't keep taking that risk every single season. Loan signings can be really good, but we lost about 6 or 7 loan players, and they were all our best players as well, really. And even Philogene was almost on loan because he's gone back to Villa, so could be difficult, but
the biggest loss of all of those loan players, of course, being Bora, Eidenlech. Will,
how can we cope?
Where have you put us?
Quite similar to what everyone else said. I think we'll struggle, but we'll end up surviving and finishing in a relatively comfortable position. I think about 13th, 14th as well. I'll go with 14th just to be safe because it's the lower of the two. But yeah, I think it's going to be a season of, as it looks at the moment, a season of consolidation and building for next season if we're going to try and give Walter some time to build his style and build a team and then send them forward.
Rebuild number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, Ant.
I put 12th. I just wanted to put somewhere in the middle, and that was slap bang in the middle. I just think that as the squad currently is, I actually think it would be lower because I think the first 6 months would be really tough. But with a few weeks left of the window, I'm convinced that we just have to get players in. So we must do, because we need at least 7, 8 players at least. I don't know. But no, I just think we'll be mid-table. I think we'll start slow and then have to try and recover it. And even if we did get new signings in, I don't think they're going to have enough time to fully bed into the system and gel together to really sustain like a playoff push. So we'll probably just be like playoff outsiders all season and then finish short. So yeah, mid-table 12th.
But so on that point, just as a sort of follow-on question from that, genuinely, as things stand with the squad as it is, and this might be a very pessimistic note to end on, how many squads in the championship are definitively worse than us, do we think? I'd say Oxford. Millwall, maybe?
Leeds.
Leeds.
Well, I
Sheffield
think
United.
the squads, there aren't many squads that are worse than us. The starting 11s, there are probably quite a few.
Probably,
yeah,
maybe the 3 that went up from League One, I'd maybe say. And maybe Plymouth, because not necessarily Plymouth because of their squad, but Plymouth because of their manager.
Yeah.
Yes. Wayne Rooney, dear God, poor them.
I just think it's an interesting one sometimes because you just sort of naturally assume that there'll be these worse teams, and you actually rattle through the teams, and you go, "Oh."
I think Oxford are. I'm saying it now. They'll probably finish fucking 4th, but I think they're guaranteed to finish bottom.
I think if you change the perspective on it, I think if you look, we've probably got a bit more quality-wise in the starting 11, but I think we've probably got the worst depth in the division.
Yeah, the depth is the issue. And just to finish off, up there for people watching live on video or watching this back, that's the summary of everything. And
Nathaniel didn't pick Longman once, and I picked it twice.
Oh no, goal of the season, Longman. And
I think that's where you resigned from the podcast in disgrace, Will.
We've shifted into some alternate reality.
Well, there we have it. There's the summary for everyone watching. And Will, that makes it easy for you in 9 months' time when you sit back and try and look at what everyone predicted in
You mean when I put my smug face on because I've been correct?
When you look back at the To Hull and Back ex Hull City Australia episode in 9 months' time to get the predictions for our season review, there it all is, nice and handy in a little guide for you. Before we go, then, anything else? Because it's 10 past midnight now, and I'm very tired.
Craig Shakespeare.
Yes,
pass away. I think he was an important part, obviously, of the pace and. Even it was a short era, it was an era that was desperately needed for City, following on from that relegation.
Stabilising era, wasn't it?
On the and on the verge of administration and all that. Obviously, with the Allens coming in and saving the club, which feels weird in hindsight. But yeah, he was an important part of that, and obviously, he was a decent coach for everyone. Everywhere you read about like what he was like at other clubs, it seems like he was a really nice bloke, and it seemed like he was really nice. He was a really good coach, and it's a shame.
Yeah, echo every word Will said, and sympathies from all of us here go to the family and friends and people who knew him and what have you, because not just the achievements, not just here, but he was won the Premier League. He then took that job on as an interim when Claudio Ranieri left and saved them at our expense. And he managed Leicester in the Champions League, went on to be assistant to Dean Smith as well at Aston Villa, was at Everton for a little while as assistant as well. So he had a phenomenal career. And yeah, what Will said, I can't think of anything better to say just because it's 10 past midnight here. Yeah. So on the contrary, for Alex and Dan, how's it been doing this early?
Yeah, I was going to say much appreciated, guys. It is always difficult to find a time that works out in both time zones. Yeah, up bright and early on a Saturday morning. Had my coffee already, so I'm all good. I've got football later on today, so ready to go. But yeah, no sleeping on the weekend for me. That's fine.
I'm all right. I'm up at this time anyway, usually. So
I'm so tired.
Normal.
Typical, because I'm an insomniac, but this is the one day I'm feeling tired.
And just think, boys, midnight there. That's when City will be kicking off. Sort of 8 days from now against Bristol City. No, actually, no. It's a 9:30 game because it's a 12:30 kickoff in the UK. But yeah, midnight kickoffs for us are quite a normal thing. So just imagine that you're settling into watch City now. It's a tough one.
Okay, well, I don't function past like 10:15 on a night, so God knows how I've done this. Nathaniel, you can go to bed now. Yeah, it's okay.
Clearly, he's already in bed.
Well, yeah.
This is. Are you guys launching your OnlyFans shortly, or is this
What do you mean launching?
Nathaniel's had one for a year and a half.
Yeah, just re-advertising. Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, before it descends into total sleep deprivation from our side, I think we're going to call it there. Alex and Dan, thank you so much. It's been great, and we'll see you in a year's time.
Absolutely.
And then for us four, when Tom's back from holiday, we'll be back reviewing Bristol City, I'd imagine. So thank you for watching, listening, leave a review if that's something that you can do. I think you can on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you can be bothered to do that, be our guest. Like, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff. Follow us all on Twitter. It's not usually utter carnage that it's been for last week. Yeah, I'm off to bed. The Tigers, and goodbye.